strong. Got plenty of power.
Yeah.
I like the wide ratio box. You get a little more pull in the gear.
Yeah. A little more comfort, less RPMs.
It drives very nicely. It drives like a brand.
Everything you touch just feels factory fresh. This car sounds great.
Oh, it feels really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very nice. You could drive it anywhere. It doesn't feel like a worn-out old muscle car, you know? I mean, it's got plenty of power. And with power steering and power brakes, it's very nice to drive. No! Welcome to that episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Today, automotive royalty, certainly muscle car royalty. This is a 1966 Pontiac GTO. This is the car credited with starting the muscle car movement. I know there's a lot of debate. No, somebody thinks it's this, somebody thinks it's that. Maybe it's the Max Wedge. This is the one that really got the whole thing going. The Mustang was the pony car, and this was the muscle car. The GTO was introduced in '64. It was an option on a Le Mans. That had the 326. John DeLorean, who was the chief engineer for Pontiac, wanted to make something more exciting. He put the 389, which is against General Motors rules, but they got around it. It became such a hit. For 1965, it became its own model. And then in '66, that was probably the biggest year because it grew a little bit. It got really sexy. You had tiger gold paint and all these kind of options, the 3.2 barrels. Although that was never a factory option, that was a dealer installed option. It came with a 4-barrel, and you could order the tri-power and have it put on later. This is a one family owned car. It's a great story. We'll meet the new owner, and later some members of the family will tell us their version of the story. Let's meet Greg Stanley. Greg, come on in.
Hey Jay, how you doing?
Good, good. Now you have a podcast as well. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, so I do the Collect a Car podcast out every Thursday. You're one of my guests. Thanks for being on the show.
Sure, no problem.
I appreciate that. So I'm just honored to kind of steward this car. It's such a historic car.
Did you know this car as a kid? Because I know it's from your area.
No, this is really fascinating. So I'm big into cars. I judge cars, do a podcast about cars, and I actually act as a part-time consultant for RM Sotheby's. And as a car specialist, I was asked to represent the historic sale of a 1962 Ferrari GTO that just sold this past November for $51.2 million.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
$51.7 million.
Okay, very good.
Anyways, while I was dealing with automotive royalty with the Ferrari GTO, I get a phone call from a friend of mine. His name's Tom Darrow, known him for 30 years. He says, hey, I have a car. Some friends need your help selling it. And you know how these go. You probably get these calls all the time.
Right.
90% of the time, they don't work out, right? 90% of the time.
Well, 90% is, I have a very rare 76 Ford Granada, one of the only ones with wire wheel hubcaps. That's not that rare, you know.
Right,
People always think everything, they only built 60,000 of these. Yeah, that's not rare, you know.
Well, and this is a story where everything I heard kept getting better. It was like, wait, there's more, there's more. So he said it's a Pontiac. So I was like, okay, Pontiac, that could be good, could be bad. He said it's 1966. I said, all right generation, right year, that sounds good. He said it's a GTO. Well, I'm like, all right, is it a real GTO? Is it a fake GTO? And then he said, their dad bought it new. Well, now I'm really interested.
Sure.
And then it has all these special options, it's special paint. So now I'm really thrilled. And so slowly these text messages of these pictures start coming through, and I'm like, wait, is that the original paint? That can't be the original paint, And everything I learned about the car kept on getting better and better and better. And so I went to go help them, quote unquote, sell it. But by the time I saw it, I knew I had to buy it.
Right,
because you just don't come across cars as spectacular as this. Rarely ever. And this is a true unicorn. Yeah,
it really is. And it has all the options. This is the Tiger Gold. Is that
special order paint.
Yeah.
If you look at the data plaque, it says 1-2. It means it's a special order paint. Doesn't tell you which color. There were 5 colors.
Right.
We have the dealer invoice that was typed out. It says special paint, doesn't say the color. But after 40 years in storage, they pulled the gas tank to get the car up and running, ready for sale. They found the build sheet. And the build sheet says Tiger Gold. And really important, it says red pinstripe. These cars only came with a black or white pinstripe. This was special ordered red pinstripe.
Oh, okay.
And you'll learn a little bit. The original owner, Bob, had a big thing for gold with red accents.
No, it's a fantastic looking car. And it has all the right options. It even has the Tiger interior.
Yep, and it's got red fender liners. That is the factory option that he picked out.
Yeah, that was a rare one too. Because
red line tires.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's actually a surprise under the hood you haven't seen yet that's Tiger themed that you're going to really enjoy.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you. Well, I remember, you know, it's hard for people to imagine cars were the culture. Little GTO was a hit song, Spring Little Cobra, all these kind of songs were hugely popular. And even people who knew nothing about cars pretended to because it was part of the culture of the time, you know. And the GTO was really the one leading the pack. They used to sell a tiger tail you put in the trunk,
Right.
you know, like you had a tiger in the trunk. It's just stupid, just hilarious. But I remember I was 16 when this car came out.
Yep.
So it was like, this is your whole use. Oh my God. And I remember thinking, oh, it's so much smaller. It's not really, but compared to cars at the time,
Yep.
it was smaller. I guess this would technically be a mid-size.
Yeah, it was considered one of their smaller cars in
Yeah.
the portfolio, which
Yeah.
is crazy when you think about it.
My favorite is actually the 64 and 65 because that was just a sleeper. The Q-ship, as the British call it, just a plain Jane with this big motor in it, you know. Because GM had an edict, you had to have so much horsepower for the weight of the car.
The weight of the car, you couldn't go over 10 cubic inches per, I forgot what it was, but the max was 330 cubic inches, which is why the Le Mans had the 326.
Right, right.
You couldn't get a big engine like the 389 unless it was an option.
Right.
And then it did so well, they made it its own model in 66.
Yeah, they didn't really expect it to. They thought they'd
No.
sell maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of these. In the first year, they sold something like 35,000, and then it went crazy.
This year was
after that.
almost 97,000.
I know, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, 97,000. Now, one thing, I know you love all original unrestored cars, and I'm of the mindset of trust but verify.
Right.
So I show up into this garage, it's been uncovered, it's been in storage for 40 years. So I had my paint meter, and you know this, they didn't put a lot of paint on these cars when they were new, right? And so I did the paint meter, hood less than 4 millimeters, which is what you want to see.
Right.
But these original cars tell a story. They tell a story as to how it was painted in the factory. So you would think the top is going to have more paint because it's just sitting there, you know,
Right.
it's not running. The sides, I was so pleased to see, were 2.5 to 3.5 millimeters. Now, what I thought was really fascinating, the very bottom where it turns in,
Right.
less than 2. Because who wants to spray down there, right?
Right.
You know, and so it's exactly what you wanted to see. You wanted to see the most, a little less, and very little as you're going over the car with a fine-tooth comb.
And the vinyl roof, it always made me laugh because these were optional and they cost more money. But they put vinyl roofs on a lot of cars if the paint was bad on the roof.
Yep.
Well, stick the vinyl roof on it and charge them extra for it.
Right.
You know, that was sort of the way to
Cordova.
go. Yeah.
Cordova vinyl roof.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
And the tiger gold. And this is the original interior?
Original interior, original carpet,
That's
original
amazing.
everything. Yep.
I love the fact there's no console. It's just a big stick coming out of there.
It's got the deluxe steering wheel, it's got the wooden shifter knob, it's got a rear speaker, the aftermarket 8-track, which is pretty cool. Now, what's really special about these cars, actually, I meant to bring it out here, but there's a paint can I have that came with the special ordered cars.
Right.
So special ordered cars, in your trunk, there's a quart of paint that came with the car with this color in it. And it wasn't a pre-produced label, so it's a piece of masking tape that says Tiger Gold with the paint coat on it, and we still have that. It came with the car.
Wow, so we never had to use it, huh?
He used it to paint the tissue box so that it would match inside the car. Like, he used it for a couple little things.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it still comes with the car.
Well, how many miles on it?
Around 58,000.
Oh, that's quite a
So,
bit.
interesting story. Bob decided to unplug the odometer to keep the miles low back in
Yeah.
the 70s, and that's verified on the oil change stickers to the mile in 1978. And he put a secondary speedometer underneath the dash, painted it Tiger Gold, so it's a period piece. And the last oil change sticker before it went into storage in 1983 had the exact mileage within 10 miles of when I bought the car. So he put the two gaps, about 58,000 miles on it.
And why did it go into storage? What was the reason?
Just lack of, it was a Sunday driver.
Right.
And it was really just, you know, keeping it for Sunday drives. Those drives became less and less frequent. And it just, you know, once it gets covered up and it starts getting boxes on it, you know, and stuff, it's just harder to pull out. So just ended up not driving it that much.
And the factory hubcaps, I like American mags, but it just looks nice to see it, because this is what you got if you bought it. And the red fender liner, I remember seeing it, I don't think I've ever seen that on one, except in a show car or something.
Right.
So to see it bought new with that is really fascinating, because that was one of those it seemed so cool at the time. It's not a tradition that
They're
really
hard to keep
continues.
clean.
Yeah, it is hard to keep, especially in Ohio.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
California, it's sunny all the time.
So the hubcaps threw me off initially because if you look at the promotional material of 1966, they say Pontiac Motor Company and the center cap. Well, it turns out that was 1965. They used those for the 1966 promotional material. The actual 1966 hubcaps did not say Pontiac Motor Company, which is what these are, original to the car.
And for people not familiar, Pontiac was the old man's car. They almost dropped it because you had Cadillac, you had Chevy, Oldsmobile had its own sort of thing going, and Pontiac was just seen as, what is this? So they made DeLorean the head of Pontiac, and he made an exciting brand. They started with the wide track in '59 and the big, and then suddenly became, the performance arm, with the exception of Corvette, the performance arm of General Motors. And they really made it quite a brand because it really was just nothing. It was, you know, a salesman's car and, you know, something for the wife to go shopping and, you know, that kind of stuff. So
one of the most amazing aspects about this car is we have two pictures from the day it was bought in 1966 in front of the original dealership with a stuffed tiger on the hood, and the advertising in the window of the dealerships is "Take on a wide track tiger." Wide track advertising in the dealership when this car was bought. It's just unbelievable.
And what was the sale price?
So this car fully loaded with all the options was $4,200.
Oh, that's a lot. Well, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, it had about $1,200 in options.
Yeah, that's
Now
a
what's
lot.
interesting is since he special ordered the car, there's no window sticker, a dealer invoice.
Right.
And on the dealer invoice, he got a $600 discount, you know, because friends with the owner, I'm assuming, that
Right,
kind of
right.
stuff. But he traded in a 65 VW two-door, Carmen Ghia VW Bug, I don't know.
Yeah.
And a 60 wagon. And so that's on the dealer invoice. And then we also have not only the original title, but we also have the original loan document he took out to pay the $2,500 difference with the trade-in of those two cars and the price of the car.
Oh, that's something. Well, 42, boy, that was a lot of money.
It was. Base was somewhere around $3,400. It had about $1,200 in options.
'Cause I remember my dad went to look at a 64 Cadillac. It was $44.50. My dad offered him 44, and they went, no. Because that was his commission, $25. So yeah. So.
Well, the loan was for $2,500, and it's funny because it's 36 months. It was like $96 a month, you know, payment on this car,
Right.
which is really cool when you see it now.
I know. Yeah. It's just beautiful. Let's open the hood. Can we take a look
Yeah.
underneath? You mentioned a surprise. I want to see.
Yeah.
Is that a functional hood scoop?
No, it was
Yeah.
only functional for the Ram Air cars, which there were very few of those.
Okay. Now that was a dealer option, correct?
No, initially it was. In '66, when it became its own model, it became standard. You can actually tell the stamping, the WS, means it came factory with a tri-power 4-speed. I don't remember, I think it's a XS or something, but the stamping on the engine block tells you if it's a tri-power in the transmission. Ironically, this is not VIN stamped, but the transmission is VIN stamped,
Okay.
which is interesting.
Okay. Oh, so that was it was factory with the.
Yeah, I
3-2
think
bar.
maybe '64 it wasn't because it was an option. Now I want to see if you can pick out the hidden surprise underneath here.
The hidden surprise. No, there's a dual master.
So good catch. These did not come with dual masters
Yeah.
in '66.
Yeah, right.
But I wanted, for safety reasons, I had to put in a '67 dual master just for safety.
Right. So that's what that. Okay. So
that wasn't the
counts.
surprise.
I
That
get
does
it.
count. That wasn't the surprise then.
But that could be the surprise.
Yes.
So, Your Honor, legally,
There's actually two surprises.
there
Two
could
more.
be a surprise. Is that original gas filter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Has the engine been out of this?
I did have to rebuild the engine.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks
Yeah.
like it's been steam cleaned and all
Everything
that.
else is original though. All the paint, patina, everything else on this is all original.
Was air conditioning?
It's factory AC car on a
Yeah.
389 tri-carb.
That's why it was $4,200.
Yeah.
Because air
Very
conditioning
expensive.
was a third the price of the car,
Yep.
usually. It was $600 to $800. Okay. And you could get the air conditioning with the tri-power, huh?
Yeah, and 4-speed. That's what makes us super rare.
Okay, let's see what else we got. Well, I'm looking,
You'll see it.
Tiger horn.
That's it.
No, it's the Tiger horn. Okay.
It's a Tiger horn. So
Yeah.
when we started
That's
up,
an aftermarket.
It's an aftermarket, period aftermarket.
Right.
And there's a horn button where it makes it sound like the car's growling.
Really?
It really.
Oh, all right.
Well, you'll hear it. And another surprise, this is really cool, these oil change stickers. So the original owner had a Sunoco speed shop in Chillicothe, Ohio, directly across the street from the dealership. And he raced cars, and we'll get into that here in a second. But these oil change stickers go back to 1971, and the original owner's name is on the oil change stickers because it's Morgan Sunoco. So Bobby Morgan was the original owner of this car, and it's just cool to have the original owner's name on the oil change stickers.
You know, it's funny. Tim Allen and I, on my other show, we got a 66 GTO tri-power automatic and raced it against a Nissan Altima,
Yeah,
four-door
Nissan
V6. Nissan blew the door. I mean, they seemed so fast back in the day.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, anything under 10 seconds, 0 to 60 was fast.
This
Anything,
is 7.9.
yeah, 7.9. Yeah, so yeah, I remember the Chrysler Hemi was 6.4. And no, that's got to be a misprint. It can't be that fast, you know. So just so funny now, isn't it? But boy, nicely done.
The other cool thing is, if you look up here, this black void right here, that is where this was originally hung in the factory for paint.
Okay.
So it didn't get paint here. So it's one of the ways you can tell original paint car.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the original.
This is original. It threw me off at first because you see this recessed circular. I was like, did this have a 4-barrel?
Yeah.
They were all this way. They all had that pre-reset section.
Yeah,
in
because
the
they
foam.
originally had the 4-barrel
Right.
on there.
And so
Yeah.
they were the same for whether it was a 4-barrel or a tri-carb car.
And you rebuilt the engine totally stock?
Totally stock. The exhaust is totally stock Concord, but it is the turbo exhaust. So exterior-wise, it looks perfect, but it has a little more grunt to it.
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. Let's close the hood up here.
Now, as an AC car, the base, these normally came with 355 rear end. So you could get different rear ends based on the performance desire.
Right.
The AC car all had 323 rear ends.
Okay.
And they also had a Super Duty radiator
Right.
by Harrison. And so instead of having 15 inches of coolant space, it has like 17 and a half, 15.5 to 17. And so the actual structure underneath here for an AC car is totally different than it would be on a
You used to
factory
call that
car.
the tropical package.
Tropical package.
Yeah. Well, let's go over the interior. It's the Muncie 4-speed. Is that what it is?
It's the Muncie 4-speed.
Yeah.
It's a wide ratio one. You could do either wide or close ratio. This
Right.
is the wide ratio.
But the 323 is really perfect because
Yeah.
you're getting reasonable gas mileage. It's still plenty fast.
Yeah.
You're not beating the engine up all the time.
I asked the restorer who worked on the engine, I said, you know, I'd really love for Jay to do a burnout in this car, you know, limited slip differential. He's like, well, you know, it's a 50-something-year-old rear end. If you want a bunch of parts falling out the rear, go ahead.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that.
But it's all stock. I do have the original floor mats. They look just like these aftermarket ones. Deluxe seat belts. We have Alhert 8-track in there. That's an aftermarket, obviously, the 8-track player, but you can see the factory AC vents and everything.
And of course, you have a tachometer, which was, ooh, that was.
Yeah, a big deal back then.
You know, it's hard to imagine what it was like back in the day, but these were such exciting. This is the first time we had really exciting cars. The mid-60s, all kinds of stuff was coming out. And
now, there is a defect in the interior I want one of the daughters to tell you about. This defect is the reason I had to buy the car.
Yeah.
So we'll let them talk about it.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
it was basically, when I saw the defect, I said, if that's the only damage to the interior, this car is immaculate.
Yeah. And the other speedometer cost.
Yeah,
there, which
painted
is
Tiger Gold.
painted tiger gold, which is funny. Okay, and it's a full 4-seater. You can get 5 people in this car, no problem. In fact,
Yeah.
you have seat belts for 5, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and we got all original headliner, everything is all original.
Power steering,
Power steering.
power brake.
A couple other cool things about the car. We have this Ohio inspection sticker from 1968, which is cool.
Right.
And on the back, there's a Sunoco fired sticker, 260 fired, which was one of their marketing campaigns back in the day.
Well, I remember Sunoco 260 was the gas. That
Yeah.
was the 100 and something octane.
Yep.
You know, that was just.
And you had the gas pumps where you can turn the dial to what you wanted. And
Yeah.
when I first saw that, I'm like, this is foreign to me. So I had to do a lot of research to figure out what.
Oh yeah,
260 fire
25
was.
cents a gallon. Wow.
Yeah. We have receipts from the 70s on this car, $6.12 to fill it up.
Yeah, I know that's what it was. Yeah.
We have every registration from 1966.
Oh, that's great. And came off the road in '83, huh?
83, yep.
Yeah. Let's take a look in the trunk. You had some promotional
Yeah,
material?
there's some fun stuff in the trunk.
Let's take a look.
So there's a lot of fun stuff in here.
Oh yeah, I remember these ads. I remember that one.
Yeah, so that's actually a dealer magazine that the original owner's name is listed in there. Now, it's from the dealership, it's to him. I think they just took these little scratch off letters and put it in there so they would personalize it for him.
Right, right.
But it's still really cool, and that's not his car because that has the Rally 1s on
Right,
it. But it's very, very cool.
And the stripe is black.
And the stripe is black. Yeah, good eye, good eye. So other cool stuff, I have a shadow box back here that shows not only the original picture of the car back when it was bought new with the tiger on the hood, but also a black and white picture of the two daughters back in 1966 in front of the car.
Oh, that's very cute.
Yeah.
And they're here. We'll meet them in a
Yep,
minute.
we'll meet them, and we recreated that the day I bought the car. You'll see that burnt up paper tag in the shadow box. What is so cool about that, the date on the tag is actually today, which is Kismet, you know, and that was attached to the air conditioning unit. This car was built the second week in April of 1966. He bought it, took delivery the fourth week of April. That tag is from the third week, is from the production, from the factory.
Wow.
I found it while I was detailing the engine bay, and I just said, you can't reproduce this, so I put it in the shadow box. There's a picture of Bob. He's got his he's a racer, so his cane has, you know, the racing checkered flag on it. And then up top there we have the Banya's, the dealer emblem, which typically would go on the back of this car.
Right.
That's the original to the car, but there's not really a great place to put it, so they kept it and even had the double-sided tape in there still from the factory.
Oh, that's fine.
And then what is also cool is the original dealer emblem, which typically would go on the car. That was never put on the car, but it came with it, which is really cool. And then a couple Cadillac emblems. Bob, it was a Pontiac Cadillac dealership. Bob put those on the Cordova top just for fun. We have pictures back to 1968 with those on the car. They fell off while we were working on the car. It was double-sided tape, so I just decided not to put them back on. But we wanted to honor the legacy of Bob with this car. Some other cool stuff, we have all the original documentation. You can see the important wide track documents, and it has the sales rep's name, who was the owner of the dealership at the time. It has the original Protecto plate with the actual metal.
And explain what Protecto plate is for
So
people.
Protecto plate is like your guarantee. When you got this, it had the VIN number, everything about the car on a metal plate.
Right.
And then later, the owner would be mailed one with the date of purchase, his name on the car, on the metal plate, and you would put that in this protection plan as well, and that's in that booklet, which is really, really cool. There's also the original owner's manual, and what's cool is inside the owner's manual, there's actually a little blue piece of paper which the dealership put in there, additional stuff to say, hey, don't do all this stuff. You know, this is what it says, we're not covering you on these other things, you know, which is pretty interesting that it was put in by the dealership. And then I got some cool little poker chips I made, kind of honoring this car. When I go to car shows, I'll hand them out, they'll have a YouTube video, you know, like this.
Right.
And then obviously you have to have the stuffed tiger, so. Very cool. You know, I was able to replicate the original license tags from that picture in 1966.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got the original.
Was that a vanity plate?
Yeah, I just got those made online. Yeah.
No, but I mean, was that a vanity plate?
No, it
in
was
66?
not. So they were special ordered
Right.
with the 66, but it changed, you know, a couple different times. So I just wanted to honor that original picture back in 66 by reproducing that for the car.
Oh. Yeah, really cool. Was Jim? You ever meet Jim Wangers? You know him?
No, I know who he is. I never met him though.
He was the big
Godfather.
GTO guy. Yeah, the godfather of GTO. And there was Royal Bobcat Pontiac.
Detroit, right?
Out of Detroit, yeah. And he sort of took 389s, beefed them up a little bit. And of course, everybody remembers there was a famous car and driver, I think October '64, maybe, where they raced a Pontiac GTO against Ferrari GTO, and of course, the Pontiac GTO won, but it was a ringer. It had the 421, not the 389, and it was all hopped up. It was just like a scam, but they must have sold 1 million copies of that, and that really helped sell the car.
So what's hilarious is while I was representing the Ferrari GTO and buying a Pontiac GTO, I wanted to recreate that, and it would have been Car and Driver's 60th anniversary of that issue, and it just fell apart for different reasons. Honestly, if this car would have been driven at the time as hard as they wanted to drive it, it probably would have blown up, you know?
Right.
So a lot of different things, but I did get some pictures of me with this car, with the historic GTO, so kind of recreated it on a small scale.
Oh, cool, very good.
Very cool.
Very good. Wait, let's shut the trunk, and let's meet the daughters. Tracy and Lisa, the two daughters of Bob Morgan. Hi, you guys, how you doing?
How you doing?
Good.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So you obviously grew up with this car.
Yeah.
Now, were you car enthusiasts as kids, or not really, or you know what I'm saying?
We were girls.
Right.
Right. And our other car was a Volkswagen Bug. That's what Mother drove.
Oh, is that right? That's
yeah.
funny.
So when my dad bought this car, I mean, this was like the coolest, sharpest car that we had ever seen. But
Right.
being girls, we were more into Barbies.
Right, right. But did you have, like when you got into high school, were guys hitting on you because they hoped to get a chance to?
Originally, when my dad bought the car,
Yeah.
the joke was, I was 7. When
Right.
Tracy's 16, this will be her car.
Right, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, you know, a few years down the road, that totally went out the window.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was basically, we'd go on long Sunday drives, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. We went to Daytona every February. My dad was a race car driver in the Ohio Valley area, but you know,
Right.
he had to go to Daytona. And we would drive it down there. I think we drove it down there 2 or 3 years in a row until we bought a big carryall, and then that was much more comfortable to drive
Right.
in. So anyways, the car was actually stored in a garage off-site. It was a chiropractor, and they had a brick garage, and my dad paid to store the car. It was always stored.
Right.
It was never at our house. It was just something
Oh,
you brought
okay.
out on special occasions.
Well, it's funny, you know, you said a term Sunday drive, because that was the huge deal.
Oh.
When my dad's car. Can we go for a Sunday drive? And you go get ice cream or whatever it might be. But the idea of going for a Sunday drive.
And my dad loved nothing more than to drive, and
Right.
we hated it because we wanted to stay home and play. We might end up in North Carolina from Ohio because he just kept going.
That's it. Did either of you ever get to drive it?
Not until just a couple years ago.
Oh, really? So even when you got your license?
Oh, no one could drive this
Oh,
ur
okay. That
Yeah.
was it.
We
So
didn't
your
even-
mom
We didn't
never
even
did.
touch the car.
Your-
No, Mother did drive the car
Oh.
when she first got the car, and I remember we were going to my grandmother. She'd always driven a Volkswagen Bug, and we're going down the highway. Of course, she has no idea how fast she's going in this big car. We get pulled over for speeding by the
wow.
patrolman. Yeah. So,
Oh, did you
so
get a
that's
ticket?
exciting. Oh yeah, she got a ticket.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Kind of the cool mom with the GTO.
Yeah.
Very good. So when did it hit on you that this was, gee, really something worth preserving or saving? Because I imagine at some point, like all these things, it was just an old car. It was a used car. Did it always seem special?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, it was just a special car. We didn't drive it. It was just to take on vacation and the Sunday drives.
Yeah.
My dad always had like a carry-all suburban work truck that was all lettered for the station.
Right.
Mother had the Volkswagen. Then of course my dad always had a loaner car when he would pick up people's car to service. So
Right, right.
Yeah, and I think I think they did buy a brand new Volkswagen in '58 or '59, and I think this may be the only other new car
Yeah,
my dad
so
had for years.
With
I
the
mean,
exception of the house, this is probably the biggest purchase your dad
oh,
had, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because $4,000 in '66 would be almost $100,000 now, probably.
really?
Something
Yeah.
like. I mean, it's a really expensive. Now let me ask you about that jacket. Is there a story with that?
Yeah, this is my dad's racing jacket.
Oh,
Has
okay.
he had them custom made, so it has Morgan 66 Racing Team. So this is probably circa 1966.
It
just
looks
like the
brand
car.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad preserved it for years, and he had them custom made for his race crew.
Just one, or you had a bunch of these?
He had
Every
every-
member had their own.
Oh,
with their
okay.
Own name on
Oh,
it.
that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, Sunoco was the gasoline
Oh,
if you
yeah.
grew up on the East Coast. Sunoco 260, and like you said, you could adjust the octane rating,
Yeah.
turning the dial, whether that actually did anything, I don't know. But it really was the most powerful. What
Yeah.
was it? Was it over 100 octane?
It was like 106, I want to say.
106, 110, something,
Something
yeah,
like that,
yeah, pretty amazing, yeah.
Well, growing up, my dad would let me read the pumps. You know, every morning you'd go out and he'd read what the pump said, and then at the end of the day, you had to read and record the pump again to know how much gas was sold. And so in the afternoons, when he would close up, he'd let me go out, and I got so excited going recording the numbers to read the pumps.
And when did your dad pass away?
He passed
2020.
away in 2020.
Oh, in 2020,
September of
okay.
2020. Yes.
Okay, and the car was stored from 83.
Till
Yes.
23.
And it was
Yes.
actually stored before that. It was just moved in. He moved into a different house, and he built a great big garage in the back, and it was put into
Oh,
that
that's like
garage
40
and then
years.
never left.
So it was off the road for 40 years. Boy,
At
that's...
least. Yeah.
Did he go out and start it occasionally, or no?
I'm sure that he did.
Yeah.
And I think he was just afraid that someone would hit him, or he just it was his baby.
Yeah. Was he surprised? Because he lived long enough to see them sort of skyrocket in value.
Oh, we kept tabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The nice thing is when I was asked to look at the car, they already had it appraised.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the pressure of worrying about that. I actually paid over the appraisal just because
Yeah.
I didn't want that pressure, you know.
Right,
I want
right.
to pay a fair price for what the
Yeah,
car's worth.
exactly, exactly.
But we tried to get my dad to sell it, you know, 5 or 6 years before he passed. Just, you know, you need to get the money, and he just couldn't let go of it.
No, well, duh. I understand that. Well, that's really cool. Well, it's a great story. It's fun to see something like that. You know, as a car guy, I'm always touched by these stories where the kids go back and find dad's old car and have it rebuilt for him. You know, I always find those things very emotional. And that's fun that your dad was a great car guy. And that was the golden era, really it was. Now it's owning a gas station, that's like a bad thing now for some reason, you know, and whatever it might be. But back in the day, I mean, it was part of the culture, it was music, it was everything, you know, it was really neat. You want to take it for a ride?
Well, real quick, the damage in the car.
Oh yeah, you mentioned something.
So
I'm the guilty one.
Yeah, so the picture that made me want to buy this car,
yeah.
She said, here's the damage on the interior. And it's on the back seat, 2 little spots about the size of an eraser head. And I thought, if that's the damage to the interior, that's it.
Well,
I got to
see
see this car. And tell Jay what it is.
So I was the destructive kid in the family. And we took the Sunday drives, and we typically got ice cream. And I think one Sunday my dad decided we're not going to have ice cream today. And I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I could stand on the back floorboard and put my mouth right up to the back of the seat. And I just started gnawing. and
bit holes in the
bit
upholstery.
tiny little holes, 2 tiny holes in the upholstery. So needless to say, my dad was very upset with me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And one thing I regret, you know, he is a perfectionist. He actually ordered replacement vinyl seat covers, but never put them on.
oh,
But those got lost in the shuffle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We used to have Rayco. Remember Rayco seat covers? I don't know if you remember that. No. That was a big thing. At least New York, Connecticut, Rayco seat covers. You slip them over, you know. It's like grandma's furniture with the plastic over them, you know. In the summer, you'd peel your back off the thing. It'd be so hot.
Oh, yeah.
But very cool. Well, let's take it for a drive, and to keep you from biting in the back of the seat, you and I will just go. Okay. Okay. Don't want to have a repeat of what happened, because we're not getting ice cream. Well, thanks, you guys. It's a great story. And thanks for coming
Thank you
to
so
the
much.
garage
Oh,
and
it's a
sharing
real
it with
honor.
us. It's fun to keep your dad's legacy alive.
Oh,
How old was your dad when he got this car?
He was born in 31 and he bought it in 66.
Oh, okay.
35.
Okay. So he had a pretty good long life. That's good.
Oh, he did.
Oh,
he had a
yeah.
great life, yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
Great dad.
Well, cool. Come on, let's take it for a spin.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jay.
you guys. But before we start, we got to hear the tiger horn. That sounds like termites. All right, there you go.
60s marketing.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah.
I love there's no console.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, that's the old Muncie that had the reverse right next to it.
They're so tight. It's so tight. I've gotten to where I know if I put my finger forward, it's touching the button on the radio, I'm in the right gear.
Yeah. That's not loud at all, actually.
No.
I remember all the advertising today. You had the mild-mannered accountant with the glasses, and he would be driving, and then he'd shift it, and the glasses would come off, and they did that with Mustang too.
Yeah.
And it shows how and all the men were wearing hats.
Right. You got the headroom, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I looked into this. The grill for 66 is specific. It's a plastic that they actually copyrighted. Instead of plastic, it's called clastic with a K. And so in 65, they had like a zinc grill. 66, they went to this clastic, 35% lighter, cheaper, obviously, right? I would prefer the zinc grill, but I just thought it was hilarious. They actually copyrighted the name, hoping for big things with plastic.
Yeah. Well, you know, I always tell a story. They stopped building the Hemi 426 because the 440 was $5 an engine cheaper.
Yep.
And when you're making 10 million cars, that's a lot of money.
What also I found out is the hood on this car is actually the same as a 65. but not much else is interchangeable. Like the rear quarters are specific to the 66.
Right.
67, they're actually different. The one thing I promised the family is I would share this car. Now, originally I was thinking, you know, I'll share it at the local car show. Sharing it on your YouTube channel is just a dream come true. I am going to share it at the Cincinnati Concours. It will be shown, I believe that's like June the 9th.
Right.
And then I'm going to have it at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals up in Chicago in November. And that's pretty cool because they're having a 60th anniversary of the GTO. They call it the Red Carpet Invitational.
Oh, that's cool.
So this car actually made it onto the red carpet for that show, which would be really cool because this car has so many red highlights to it. The red fender liners and everything should look really good on it. I think one of the things I love the most about this car, like, you know, it's only original once.
Right.
So you can feel the quality, you know, the ashtray goes in smoothly.
Right.
You know, once these cars are apart even once, they tend to become rattle traps.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, this is exactly what you want. You know, something that's got air conditioning, it's got a 320. You're not going to win any races in this
No,
thing.
no.
So the idea is you sort of drive it on what it was.
Right.
And if this had 411s in it, oh my God, it'd be screaming.
Just be
at
whining,
every gear.
right? I mean, as you know, all these cars really needed a fifth gear, you know, just for highway driving. Now, have you ever had this generation of GTO on your show? I know you had a 64. You had the Judge or anything else like this?
I don't think we had this, no.
What I always found fascinating about the whole story was Bobby Morgan was all about going fast. He loved the number 66. That was his race car number. He loved gold, and he loved red accents. Hence the jacket, you know, it's gold with red. It's got 66. He bought a 66 GTO, gold and red. And when you look at some of his old racing pictures, he actually, I don't know what the engine was, but one of his race cars, it had a tri-power setup. Another one of his cars had dual carbs. He had there's even some great pictures. Well, they're very good pictures of him wrecking at this dirt track back in the day. You know, thankfully he was fine, but it's amazing history for the owner of this car.
Amazing, it was stored for 40 years, geez.
There's a lot of people, I think, locally that when they see this out and about, you know, they've had their eye on this car probably for 30 years.
Right.
You know, and you know, I think the family just kind of wanted it shared, maybe outside that geographical area.
And where are you, Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
And how far is that from?
It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not too far, but far enough, you know?
Yeah, but that's where they can come visit it whenever they want.
Right, right. They have some real nice pictures of this car back in 67, 68, you know, going to Daytona Beach, you know, with the mom and the two little girls, and they were both sitting in that back seat next to each other. That's how tiny they were back then, just
That's funny.
sitting in the back. Now your Jag, the E-Type, did you rebuild the engine?
Well, you mean the one we pulled? No.
Yeah, the one you pulled out?
No. It's got the original exhaust system. It's only got 17,000 miles.
Oh, wow.
Got original Jag, toolkit, everything's in there. Original top, original plastic window.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And it runs fine. I mean, we pulled the rear end, flushed it.
And that was a guy that just put it away and kept getting covered up?
Bought it in 63, parked it, I guess, 67, started drinking, and just never stopped drinking.
Oh, that's sad.
He died about 2003, I guess.
Okay.
No, 2.
Okay.
It's literally across the street. I mean, right.
Wow, that's amazing. They're still out there.
Oh yeah, there's tons of, especially here in California.
Yeah.
Well, that's the fun thing about living here, you know. All the aircraft manufacturers are here. Lockheed Martin was the Burbank. And constantly you see all these little houses with enormous garages behind the houses.
All right.
You know, because they're engineers and airplane guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing about finding a car in Ohio. You half expect it to be rusted away.
Right.
You know? And the fact that this car had no serious rust at all on it is really a testament to how infrequent he drove it, you know, and only drove it on Sundays and special days.
Feels strong, got plenty of power.
Yeah.
I like the wide ratio box. You get a little more pull in the gear.
Yeah.
The 323s rather, fourth gear feels like 50.
A little more comfort, less RPMs.
Yeah, yeah. It drives very nicely. It drives like a brand new car.
Right, yeah. everything you touch just feels
Yeah.
factory fresh, I guess is the best way to put
Yeah.
it. Like I said, I've got an old 65 Mustang Hypo that it is a real Hypo, a real K-code 4-speed car. But you know, it was painted 30 years ago at one point. You know, it rattles and creaks, and those cars rattled and creaked new, you know, the Mustang.
Yeah.
You know, you shut those doors and it sounds like, you know.
Wah,
it's-
nah, nah, nah,
yeah. This car sounds great. Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, it feels really good.
Yeah.
What was it? 335 horse? Isn't that what it is?
360. 335 was the 4-barrel.
Oh, 360.
Yeah, Tri-Carb had 360.
Oh, okay.
The rare Ram Airs had 380.
I mean, it's very nice. You could drive it anywhere. It doesn't feel like a worn-out old muscle car, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, it's got plenty of power. And with power steering and power brakes, it's very nice to drive. I've got my Hemi Coronet, no power steering, no power brake, drum brakes. Both feet are on the pedal when you want to slow down.
Right.
Whereas this is very nice with the simulated wood grain plastic steering
That's right,
wheel.
simulated. All of it simulated wood grain in here.
And when you open up those last two carburetors,
Yeah. That's the thing I was dying to do once I had the engine rebuilt, is I
Yeah.
wanted to feel those last two carbs open.
right.
You know, the good thing about simulated wood is no trees gave their life for
Right,
the making
there you
of
go.
this car.
That's right.
Little disclaimer you can put on there.
And what did this assess at? I'm not asking what you paid for. What did the?
He put it around 62,000.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No, especially I don't think that factored in any of the story.
Right.
Any of the original. I mean, some of the originality, but I mean the fact it's a 389, you know, tri-power AC 4-speed car with red fender line. You know, all the stuff, special paint, all that stuff. It's just rare. You know.
I think if this had gone to auction, it might have gone for 100,
Yeah. So
125.
the experts I talked to at Arm Sotheby's were like, that's 90 to 120 all day.
Yeah.
And that's before we unearthed all these other fun little things, you know,
Right,
all the paperwork. You know, the picture of the day it was bought with the tiger on the hood.
Yeah.
You can't get a better first car picture than that. I like it. You're giving it the beans.
Yeah, it's good. It feels really good.
Yeah.
It reminds me, we had an Oldsmobile 442 that had the tri-power package.
Oh, wow.
It's probably a little heavier than this,
Yeah.
but that was like, you know, it felt like a luxury car with a 4-speed.
Yeah.
Had plenty of power, fun to drive.
It surprised me. They said the Le Mans, you know, without the big block, is about 3,000 pounds. This is 3,500, full
Yeah.
500 pounds more.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
Sound insulation, sound deadening and all
yeah.
that.
I mean, the engine's probably, you know, I don't know, 90, 100 pounds heavier. from
Right.
The big block.
Yeah, boy, it's great.
You can really tell when those carbs kick in.
I know. You know, at this time, you see, when I was a kid, I was never really a Porsche guy or anything because a Corvette with 425 horsepower was $4,400. A Porsche with 60 horsepower was like $5,000.
Right.
You know,
The math didn't make sense.
No, you just thought strictly in terms of horsepower, not handling or sophistication. It was just
Right.
who had the most power.
It's funny you say that because after I sold a 66 Mustang convertible, I wanted to try the other side. So I bought a little 911.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved it.
yeah.
And it honestly turned me off of muscle cars a little bit. Like I like the cornering aspect of it. I like the high whining aspect
Right.
of the engine. I just absolutely loved it. And then ended up buying like the grandfather of muscle cars, right?
What year? 911?
It was a 99. It was a first gen.
Oh, modern one.
Yeah, 996. I'd like to get an older one. But sold that when I found the Hypo Fastback down
That's
in
the
Florida.
first year the water cooled, right?
Yep. Yeah, so I ended up no Porsche and I got the granddaddy of muscle cars now.
It's funny when you just look at all the period advertising and all that stuff. Remember Mustang had a group of singers, the Young Americans, and they were like non-hippie looking kids, you know.
Right.
And they come out and they sing Mustang, Mustang. I mean, it's just so cornball.
Yeah.
Transmission is very nice.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Synchros are all beautiful.
I was surprised that they would VIN stamp the transmission, but not the engine.
Yeah. It's got discs in the front, right?
No.
Oh no, it's drum all the way around.
Yeah, drum all the way around. They work well though, you know?
I guess 67 was the first, yeah. I remember when I was a kid, my dad and I went to look at the 66 Ford 7 liters of 428.
Yes, that's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, since my dad was, since I was going to be driving, my dad said to the salesman, does this car have seatbelts? And the guy went, seatbelt. Hey, Louie, we got a race car driver here. What are you, a bad driver, Miss Leno? You crash a lot? You need a seatbelt? I just berated my father.
Who is this joker?
Yeah, just berated him to death. They're like, yeah, a seatbelt. Yeah, I think I told that story. When the car came in, the guy showed us how if you roll the seatbelts up, you can tip the seat forward and keep the seatbelt in the crack, you see. So you never have to see him again.
You know, it's a great point. I wonder about this car, because he ordered the deluxe seat belts.
Yeah.
Now, it could have been because he knew his daughters would be in the back seat.
Yeah, that might be it.
It might be, maybe that's why. You know, he said, I'm going to make this safe. Yeah, it's also like the Tuckers. You know, they had that anti-crash zone.
Yeah, you had the...
You know, you ball yourself up in a ball right before the accident.
Yeah, you have the safety well.
The safety well,
You
right?
dive into the safety well.
They didn't want the seatbelts in the brochure because they said it might give the illusion of an unsafe car. Right?
Yeah, that's what people used to think.
Yeah.
That was the era when you wanted to be thrown clear.
Yeah. Land softly.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm very impressed with how this drives. It really, I'm not just saying that, it really drives very, very nicely. Because most muscle cars of the period today, by today's standards, certainly, were just a lot of work to drive. Just,
Right.
You know, power steering was not mandatory. It was not standard. So, you know, every power accessory you got on a muscle car took power away from the motor.
Sure.
You know, so power steering, power brake, all added weight. So guys just wanted the lightest. It's why insurance rates are so high. They were just so dangerous.
Yeah.
My Cornet with those drum brakes. Oh my God.
Yeah, like this is not a light car, you know, especially the way it's been spec'd out.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
the ACES system
But
on it.
I mean, it is something you could drive.
Yeah.
I always tell the story about the two guys that called me and they, oh, Miss Leno, we're driving an antique car across country, and we're leaving New York, and we want to end up in your garage. Can we take a
wow.
picture and we get? I said, yeah, sure. I said, what kind of antique car are you driving? It's a 68 Cadillac. I go, you know, my dad did that trip like 8 times. That's really not. You got air conditioning, you got AM. I mean, yeah, like just I'm thinking, oh, Model T.
Yeah.
What do you got? A Will St. Clair, a Peerless? What do you got?
I had a similar humiliating experience. I was washing my like 66 Mustang convertible, and this kid walks by, and he is just enamored with the car.
Right.
And he's probably 9 years old or so. And he's like, what year is that? I'm like, well, why don't you guess? It's really, really, really old.
Right.
Is that 1999?
Right,
I was like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that really hurt.
I know, that's what it is. I was driving my 13 Mercer Raceabout. The kid says, what year is that car? I said, 1913. What does it run on? It runs on gasoline. They didn't have gasoline in 1913. I go, well, no, they had gasoline. I mean, he didn't put the obligatory Hirsch shifter in it.
Right.
Any of that,
Kept totally stock, except for the 8-track.
It is unusual that a racer would keep it stock.
Yeah, yeah,
But you know, when you run a gas station, this is your big purchase.
yeah.
You know?
So the first car I can remember, like, I always loved cars from a young age. My mom used to draw, like, it was basically the automotive equivalent of a stick figure.
Right.
But when you're like 4 years old, it looks like magic, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks like a car. You know, so I had fond memories of my mom drawing these little cars for me when I was a little kid. But when I was probably 15 years old, my dad's buddy showed up at our house in an absolutely stunning, beautiful 66 cherry red Mustang convertible, white top, spinners, white wall tires. It had a GT package on it. Later, when I knew what I was talking about, or knew what I was looking at, I realized it wasn't a real GT. It could have been a hunk of junk, but it looked great.
Right.
And I fell so in love with this car in the driveway that I offered to watch it just so I could touch it.
That was funny, yeah.
And then it was gone.
Greg, thanks for bringing this by. Boy, this was a lot of fun. This is really a nice car.
Thank you.
This is what everybody should seek to find because it doesn't drive like a muscle car of the period. It drives like a, I guess if this was a Porsche, this would be the touring package.
Right.
323, air conditioning. You can drive it as a normal car. It's a little tricky without the power brake. It's funny when you talk to people under 40, you know. and they never drove a car that didn't have power brakes. They go, well, I can't stop this thing.
Right,
No,
yeah.
just more pressure.
Yeah.
And they literally jump on the pedal.
Well, I appreciate you having us on. I mean, just to share the story, that's what I promised the family. Try to get the story out there and share it. Never did I ever think it would be on Jay Leno's show.
No, that's what's great. That's what makes
So,
it fun.
really appreciate it.
We love these kind of stories.
It's somewhat unrepeatable. You know, if I come back to you with a car with an even better story, you know, pinch me.
Yeah,
But
well,
these, you just don't come across these.
You know, it is funny. They're all out there. I meet so many older guys that maybe they didn't have children, their car was their whole life, and they just want their vehicle to go to somebody who'll keep it.
Yes.
You know, the
Yeah.
worst thing is you sell it and then you see it on Bring a Trailer for 3 times the money.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But thanks for helping to preserve the pieces. Greg, thank you, my
Yeah,
friend.
thank you,
Really.
Jay.
Hey, folks, hope you enjoy this little trip down muscle car memory lane, and we'll see you guys next week.